I find myself testing a lot of stuff on checkout. Like it's rarely the main form, and I wish I could have more control over that. But if I'm adding testimonials or countdown timers for sales or in-cart upsell stuff, like you can do that in checkout on Shopify Plus. That's a great win for us.
Hi everybody. In today's episode we had with us Nick Disabato. Nick is a very experienced UX UI expert that helps Shopify Plus store owners increase their profits. In today's episode we talked about usability tests, split testing, how and why you should be customer-centric, and why brands should prioritize customer LTV over conversion rates. And basically, if you're a store owner that you're interested in UX UI and split testing, you should listen to this episode.
Welcome to the Ecom X Factor podcast, where it's all about launching and scaling your business using sales funnels, automations, and smart marketing. And now, please welcome your host, the founder of Ecom X Factor, Yaron Bin.
Hi Nick, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you for hopping on this call. I'm very excited. I've looked around in your agency's website in Raft, and I love the content that you're uploading. So much valuable content, because normally when I hop on agency websites, it's not such an abundance of talk about split testing and stuff like that. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. Great. So can you share a bit about your agency and what you're doing and your background?
Yeah, sure. I run a design consultancy called Draft. We do basically optimization for e-commerce these days. And in practice, because I have a UX background, I've been doing that for a little while now. We do a lot of customer research that can be qualitative, like interviewing them, or doing usability testing, or it can be quantitative, like running heat maps or doing analytics to find out what people say, what people do. That drives test ideas, and we tend to be the industry win rate by about 4x as of press time. So it seems to be working as a strategy, and people tend to trust us because we ground all of our decisions in evidence.
Amazing. I love being data driven. Can you share, do a brief overview about the test that you mentioned for the listeners who are not quite familiar with what is a usability test? And
oh, sure. Yeah. So a usability test, basically, you have a series of tasks that you have various participants go through. It could be checking out with a dummy credit card or trying to find a product that fits a certain set of properties. And you have them vocalize their monologue, and usually the camera's turned on at them when they're going through. And that helps them get a sense for any sort of errors that might be occurring, any sort of problems that might be occurring, things that you put together that you thought were easy to use that are actually hard to use in practice because no one knows what they're doing on the internet. So having those sorts of insights and being able to kind of demographically qualify them allows you to come up with things that you could be fixing that are just bugs, but it also allows you to come up with things that you could be testing, because people might be talking about various properties of a product that really land for them or that they happen to value. And when you have those sorts of things, you could take quotes, make them your H1, and see how it works with your customers. That's a lot more informed than changing your button from green to red. It's a little bit more like, oh, this actually mattered to someone out there.
Cool. And when you said H1, you meant the new hypothesis, because you have H0, which is the original page, and H1 is what you're looking to test using the split test. Am I correct?
Yeah. In this case, I meant H1 as like your main headline.
A headline,
I was using a code. Yeah, but H0 is, that's actually like a null hypothesis. It's in statistics, which is, I like that you went to the math direction with it.
Yeah, so because of the context, I assume that you said you have a quote from the user. Maybe he was amazed, and it might give you like an idea for a new quote that you can place in your H1 variable and test it. But I probably got you wrong because you meant headline, H1 headline, but never mind. It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. And you mentioned in your website, and you also mentioned during the interview that you do this with e-commerce stores. So can you share a few examples of what usability tests you made lately and anything that surprised you?
I'll give a good example that had a really big win for us that we can talk about in a case study. So we ran a round of usability tests with people who came into, they make custom bracelets. We have a case study for it all up on our website. And but the vast majority of their traffic comes in through Instagram ads and Facebook ads, which means they're coming in through mobile. I think like 87% of their traffic was mobile. And they spent a lot of time getting this configurator finagled properly on desktop, and it worked out great for them, except desktop was converting at 4 times the site mean, and almost all of their traffic was mobile. So wondering about that, I ran a usability test exclusively for mobile customers. And it turned out that when you loaded the product detail page, all they were seeing was the carousel and the add to cart button, but none of the customization functionality. So I looked at that and said, okay, well, they don't know that. They know this is a custom bracelet website, and then they're reaching errors when they try and hit checkout because they're not seeing that they have other elements that they need to be filling in. So we designed a kind of sticky footer where there's a step-by-step process that you can go through to customize these bracelets effectively, and it always stays there no matter what scroll point you're at on the page. And conversion rate went up by something like 18% as a result of this.
Amazing.
It was really, really, really useful for people because we just had to make that legible and clear, and people were telling us they were getting tripped up by it, and so we gave them what they wanted. It was not, it sounds like rocket science, and I just do this every day. So, yeah.
And for the listeners who think that this is rocket science and they're not in the stage of yet needing to A/B test and optimize, what would you say to them? Because I think there's a common misconception that people ignore A/B test and usability tests and stuff like that. So what would you say to people who are like on the fence and considering to start testing? Are there any cons on starting to test when someone is ready to start testing, in your opinion?
That's an excellent question. What are the cons of testing? I think that there are 2. One of them is testing without a full knowledge of the process. So if you don't understand how to call a test, what statistical significance looks like, and you're just looking at what Google Optimize shows you, that may not be enough information, and you might make the wrong decisions for your business. The goal of testing is to determine whether or not to roll out a change. It's either rolled out or it's not. That's it, right? So if you end up making an uninformed decision, or you make a poorly informed or a misinformed decision, that can be really dangerous. The second thing is a little bit more subtle, but people want, presumably you're listening to this if you want to profit in e-commerce, right? You want to have a higher conversion rate or a higher AOV or higher average revenue per user. Whatever it is, the path to profit matters, right? Yeah. But there can be, if you want to be strictly numbersy about it, there's a challenge where if you're just maximizing conversion rate, you may be manipulating customers or deceiving them in some capacity, or there could be some sort of knock-on effect that affects the ability for them to refer you to other people, like their friends and their family. It can affect their reorder rate. It can affect customer lifetime value, which is very notoriously difficult to measure, especially on Shopify. So I'm cautious about the idea of maximizing all the things just for the sake of maximizing them. I always try to develop a more holistic portrait of what conversion in general looks like, because it's never about profit necessarily. It's about having happy customers, and then hopefully the profit comes out of that. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, and I totally agree, because we can put a countdown timer in a website which might create scarcity and urgency, but at the end of the day, or misleading claims, which is also very often, that might improve the conversion in the short term, but as you mentioned, the lifetime value is probably going to be lower because people are dissatisfied because we made false claims. So very important. And I love the way that you stated a happy customer is probably going to create better profits overall.
Yeah, and that involves an element of faith, right? Like, you're not looking at a business intelligence dashboard when you're measuring happiness. You get maybe some nice fuzzies from seeing the reviews, but that does matter. That goodwill matters. I see it happen all the time in my work. So, Yeah.
So how do you get an idea of the happiness measurements? So can you elaborate regarding how do you measure this?
I don't really measure it. I just observe it. I think that for me, I can tell when I'm doing my job right. And this is where it gets into more of a woo thing, right? I can tell I'm doing my job right when I get majority positive reviews that said this changed my life and I told all my friends about it. Or I can tell I'm doing my job right when at the end of a usability test or at the end of a round of interviews, everybody personally thanks me for helping them out, or they praise my company for having really solid values. And the more I get that, the more I'm like, okay, we're doing something right here. The more our messages are landing. And that's not, I don't measure it. I wait for it to come. And if it's not coming, then I start to wonder, okay, what are we doing wrong here? Because that's a bigger question. And I know that's something that probably a lot of people listening to this are like me, and they're very left brain nerds, like math major in college, all the things, right? And it took a long time for me to kind of let go of control of that process and recognize that people are talking from a very feelings oriented place. And to be receptive to that has been, it's an ongoing practice for me, at least.
Cool. Interesting. And do you mind walking us through you said when one comes to create an A/B test, he obviously has to know the whole picture behind it. What is the store trying to convey? What is the average lifetime value? What are they expecting in regards to retention? You need to understand the vision, the goal, everything behind the scenes of the store. So can you walk us through regarding the process of onboarding, when a client is onboarding and until you create the flow test, or even when you start iterating the test, obviously. So can you walk us through the process?
Sure. Yeah. Let's say you run a store. You just hired me. Great. We have a 3-week kickoff period where I spend a lot of time just wrapping my head around the business. If you don't have heat and scroll maps running yet, I run them. I get your analytics in order. No one has clean data ever. Sometimes like you'll have $50 million skincare brands that don't even turn on e-commerce tracking. So I turn on e-commerce tracking and search tracking because the mind boggles.
Yeah.
I get everything in order. Usually I just wait on heat maps. I wait on behavior recordings. I might get a round of usability tests going. I'll take a look at your customer support inquiries. I will take a look at post-purchase surveys if you have them and configure them if you don't. And then I will spend a lot of time talking with various stakeholders inside the organization because I have no idea what I'm doing and you do. But you also do in a way that has a very limited perspective. And I look at a lot of different stores all the time. So that gives me a lot of information about how I can be moving going forward. And then the 3rd week of this kickoff period, I basically spend the entire time just heads down writing a report. I come up with a bunch of one-off fixes that we can be doing that are just bugs need to get handled. They can be performance improvements. More often than not, they're usability improvements. That's the most common. And then I also put together a list of A/B tests that we can potentially be running over the course of our first quarter together. And then I drop a 3,000 word brick of text on you and walk you through it on a phone call. And I have had, that is an emotional time for store owners. Because it's the moment at which they know they're starting to get value from me, but also B, and far more importantly, sometimes they have to check all of their preconceived notions about what they know with their customers. I once gave a client the report and they disappeared for 3 days. And I thought that they were ghosting me, but in fact, they had to have a grieving period. About how they believed the business operated. Yeah. And I don't claim to be an expert on how the business operates, but I can interpret and channel that energy back from customers and say, hey, this is what's going on. So that's what the onboarding process looks like.
Cool. Interesting. I totally understand what you mean in regards to grieving about the business, because I run my own A/B test for my own stores. And when I run a successful A/B test and I see an improvement in conversion rates, I catch my head and I say, I was driving so much traffic without creating the AOV and the conversion rates. I've lost potential profit. So it's very annoying, but this is part of the game. And you should be happy at least that you were able to improve the conversion. So totally understand.
Yeah, testing reduces risk, right? Like it can go the other way too. What happens if I test something and it's a disaster, right? conclusive loss. Now I know I shouldn't be doing that thing. And that avoiding of the risk is like, oh my God, we really dodged a bullet there. Thank God we tested it and didn't just roll it out and watch, and not know what was the fault, right? We could have been doing many fixes at once. So
cool.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit of quick wins, like your most amazing A/B test, or like low-hanging fruits for A/B testing for store owners?
I don't know what low-hanging fruits are for A/B testing because I have to test them, and I don't know if they're going to work. And coming up with the tests requires a research process. So the lowest hanging fruit I can say is run heat and scroll maps, take a very careful look at how your customers operate, and then run tests. And you'll make a lot of money. You'll probably make a lot more money than you put into it, which is why people hire me. The goal is for it to be an investment. In terms of quick wins, I'll tell you some of the biggest problems I see. And these are things that are, I'm going to actually answer your question now, but in order to get to a decent baseline, biggest problem is carousels on the homepage. You shouldn't have them. If you do have them, it usually takes about 9 to 12 months of development time to get a carousel to work correctly, such that it operates just as well as if you didn't have one. Not worth it. Stone cold not worth it for almost every business.
Yeah.
Rip it out, have a single image, single call to action, make it specific to your store. Navigation. Stores used to get navigation right, and then in 2020, they all decided to just start talking about themselves in their navigation and not doing things that actually meet their customers' needs, and then conversion rates dropped because why not? Why not make that decision in 2020? Nothing else was going on in the world. If you have all of your store navigation crammed under a link called store, and then you have 5 links about your brand, you're doing it wrong. You need to make your primary navigation about products in your store so that people recognize you're in a store and you spare them the click. Sorry to rain on your parade. Throw it all under an about section and put it to the side in your navigation. Filtering and sorting. No one ever gets it right because it's generated automatically by Shopify themes a lot of the time. And so they don't test it. That's a high risk, high reward one because getting it right per collection page is often a very difficult proposition. What else? What are the other big ones that everyone screws up? Swipeable image carousels on mobile. My kingdom for this in everything natively. Oh my God. It does not exist at all. In-cart upsells. More people should be doing it, and more people should be doing it smartly. They should be very careful about what gets upsold and when and where and be smart about it. And I rarely see that happening. The best example of it that I've seen is at awaytravel.com. So just add a suitcase to your cart on awaytravel.com and see what they do on the cart page. Thank me later. Rip it off, please. Cool. More people should do it. Those are some of the biggest quick wins. I think everyone screws up their carousels, and the answer is to rip out half of your code on the homepage, which you should be doing. So, yeah.
Cool. And when you say you view recording sessions, do you use Hotjar or Lucky Orange? Which software do you use normally?
I use Hotjar.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what insights do you drive normally from these recordings?
From behavior recordings or from heat maps?
From session recordings.
There's sort of a low impact version of usability testing because you don't get to hear a customer thinking, but they are real world customers who've been qualified in as traffic. So that's beneficial from a recruitment standpoint. I'll often look to see where people are bouncing or where people are hesitating, where people are pausing. I'll often take a look to see where people are, what causes them to bounce from a product detail page, right? If I got as mentally invested in a product that I went all the way into its product detail page, but then I went back out and looked at another product detail page, that first product detail page failed in some way. Why? How? What's going on? Taking a look at, again, homepage engagement. I often take a look at behavior recordings to conclude that, yes, you should not have a carousel. And also that carousels, well, not the carousel, the masthead matters. Everything above the fold on the homepage matters. I used to make the case for upper funnel focus. I think a lot of e-commerce, they're right to be spending a lot of time focusing on cart and checkout, but especially in Shopify where the ecosystem is so locked down on cart and checkout now, you get most of the impact out of things that are like the first impression of the business. Like what choices are you giving people in nav, and what kind of masthead are you presenting, and why, and in what ways. So I think those are some things I get out of behavior recordings. Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned checkout, and obviously, in my opinion, this is one of the reasons I moved away from Shopify to WooCommerce, because of the fact that you can split test checkout in Shopify. And is it something that is it a big challenge in your opinion? Like checkout, in my opinion, is the most important part, and also not the most important, but very crucial, because it's top of the bottom of the funnel. Excuse me. So I think it should be optimized as well. But in Shopify, you're not so capable to optimize this. So what are your thoughts about this?
I have a lot, actually. So the first is that if you're on Shopify Plus, you can split test certain limited things in checkout, which is nice, but you have to be on Shopify Plus.
Yeah.
Fortunate thing is most of my top tier clients are on Shopify Plus. So I find myself testing a lot of stuff on checkout. Like it's rarely the main form, and I wish I could have more control over that. But if I'm adding testimonials or countdown timers for sales or in-cart upsell stuff, like you can do that in checkout on Shopify Plus. That's a great win for us. And then you have the kind of Faustian bargain that you're talking about, where checkout is locked down, right? And I, on the one hand, as a UX and usability person, I very much believe in the more familiarity and safety you can give a customer, especially at the point where they're taking your money, probably the better. So it's actually probably a good thing. You might be running into a local maximum issue if you tried to mess with that.
Yeah.
And they do a good job of providing third-party payment providers. So I could go and use Apple Pay and skip the whole thing if I want. And they make that very clear. I think that Shop Pay, they just need to call it Shopify Pay. They need to use Shopify branding colors. It's insane that they don't. I don't understand. They're just setting money on fire by the bucket, and I don't get it. But they do a lot of things right. It's a checkout I don't hate, but I would prefer to love. And, like
makes sense.
And ultimately, like if that's the bargain you're giving me, I'll take it. But it's tenuous, right? You don't know if that's going to break in one or the other direction going forward. I really don't know. This is my opinion as of late February 2021. If I could easily imagine a situation where by May or June, something happens in technology that makes me absolutely furious at Shopify's checkout and powerless to change it. And that scares me as somebody who's invested in this platform. So that's my take on it.
What about we talked about before about the cons of split testing, and there's one obstacle in split testing, in my opinion, that you can optimize. Let's say you check something and your hypothesis is right, and you change the original page because you change. Let's say you change the quote above the fold. You have a customer quote, and this seems to be performing well. But overall, then you create another change. Let's say you change the guarantee, and now it isn't performing as well as if you were having the guarantee in conjunction with your H0 from the prior test.
Right.
So this is why MVT test was invented. So I wanted to ask you, do you use MVT test as well? Or do you stick to mainly A/B tests?
I've run multivariate tests before. You have to have a lot of traffic to make it work, because the number of variants, for those in the audience, just for math purposes, it goes up by 2 to the n. So n is the number of changes you have. So if you have one change, it's 2 variations, the control and the variant. If you have 2 changes, there's 4, because it's control both together, then the first variant and then the second variant, right? The first change, the second change. Now, if you have a third, it's 8 and then 16 and then 32. And that becomes it becomes untenable very, very, very quickly. So in practice, I might do 2. But in really what I'll probably end up doing in that situation is I'll find another high, like especially if it's on a product detail page or a collection page, I'll do it on like 2 different pages that happen to get a high traffic. And then I'm running 2 tests at once that are separate, and I can kind of keep it scientifically split up. And I rarely find that those run at cross purposes with one another because I'm doing it on different elements or I'm doing it in different ways. Because if I were changing the same element in multiple different ways, that would be 2 variations and not 2 changes. So it would be 3 variations and not 4. And I know that sounds subtle, but it matters. The real issue is when you have a lot like a multivariate on the homepage. There's one homepage, right?
Yeah.
That can be a lot more challenging. So that's usually the place where I'm doing like multivariate testing, but they have to have a really good reason for it. It has to be rooted in a lot of research, and a lot of clients are allergic to that. So that's what happens.
These days, the brands that you work with, do they send traffic to the homepage from Facebook and Instagram? Because the trend that I'm noticing, probably with smaller stores, that they send directly to the product page normally, unless they have like a retargeting ad in Facebook, like a carousel ad or something like that. So in the big stores that you work with, a lot of them send to this homepage. What is the importance of the homepage in your opinion?
I think that the homepage is still important because it's the face of your brand. And I think that actually, to answer your question earlier and your concern, like a lot of clients do the product detail page. A lot do like a landing page where they educate you a little bit more. They make you take a quiz or something, right? Just some content marketing play. But a lot of them still do homepage. A lot do. And it really depends on your industry and the type of products you sell. If you're doing if you have like a one product thing, right? You have like a flagship and accessory system, something like that for your products. You're more likely to send people to the homepage, and then you might personalize that experience with UTM parameters and stuff and Google Optimize to give people a custom tailored sort of experience.
Do you think that it might be an overkill doing this personalization? Obviously it makes sense, but it also might take a lot of effort. So
I think personalization can run out of control pretty quickly. So you're not wrong. But if you're focused about it and you do only a couple and you're specific about like, only traffic that comes in from our Instagram ads, that is a high impact personalization to be putting together, right? Just don't think about our Instagram ads in this demographic on a Tuesday at the full moon. Then you can go crazy about it. Don't bother. No, you're not a Fortune 100 company. Get over yourself.
Sure. And in regards to overkilling, so I still do a lot of tests. And let's say I have a product page, a funnel that is doing really well. But it came to a point that I wasn't able to create better results. Every optimization that I did, every split test that I did, didn't produce such a big bang for my buck. So I was considering, when should I move on? Okay, don't waste your time on this and look for a different place to optimize. So do you have some sort of an idea of when do you say, okay, enough is enough? I've probably optimized 90% of what I can get from this funnel. I'd like to move on. So how do you tackle this thought process?
Well, how do you know when something is done being optimized? I think that for me, if you're getting diminishing returns from your experimentation program, that might be an opportunity to shift to one-off fixes. If you're running out of ideas, I might go interview my customers and try and understand what's going on. Usually when I hear I'm running out of ideas, it means I need to be generating more ideas. And if you're just looking at heat and scroll maps and you're not looking at anything else, like that might be an opportunity to run usability tests or pursue other research methods, right? So, if you've exhausted all of your research methods and you've done everything that you possibly can around that, I don't know, wait for competitors to do other stuff, focus on traffic, focus on other things, launch new products. The industry changes, your offerings change, the problems you're solving change. And with that, the optimization will change too. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking there.
It makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned different research methods. So one of them is obviously, we talked about the usability test and we talked about the A/B test. And you mentioned for a brief second, the surveys. So can you elaborate a bit about post-purchase surveys? Because I find them very powerful and I'd like to hear your thoughts about what are the most powerful, impactful questions that you ask and what great ideas did you get from these post-purchase surveys?
Yeah, post-purchase surveys are subtle because they can't be, you just have to nail every word in them. And so on the, I work in Shopify, so I'm going to keep talking about Shopify. On the thank you page, the order status page, Hotjar allows you to integrate a survey that usually I make one question because I want people to brainlessly answer this question. And it literally just says, thank you for your order. What did you feel? How did you feel about your purchase today? That's it. Free text field. That's it. And then once they submit it, say, thank you so much for your feedback. If you have a problem with your order, please email customer service at badonkadonk@example.com. That allows you, because I'm not the customer service department, I'm a researcher, right? And I don't know necessarily, it might be an anonymized response. So if you're just like, cancel my order, I'm like, I can't tie that to anything. I don't know what's going on. So then when I'm in the back end, I every like couple weeks or so, I'm going through and synthesizing post-purchase survey responses. So I'll download the last tranche of data, whatever I need. And then this is one of my favorite qualitative survey hacks. Steal it, please. You add another column to the right of the survey response and you type equals LEN and then the cell of the column. So you're getting the length of the column in characters. And then you spread it through the whole column and sort descending. And then you get all the long answers at the top, which means someone ranted into the, also you great or excited or nervous or thanks, just that gets rid of all of them. But it also surfaces all the ranters. You want people ranting into that text box because it means they care and have something to tell you. And it keeps you focused on what really matters. So I'll take a look at those and say, okay, well, they had a problem with sorting here. This other person had a problem with shipment here. That's fine. I'll send it off to service and see what's going on. This person had a problem with, like, they were concerned about this, this, and this. They're trying to solve these problems in their lives. Some people will come back to the post-purchase survey after they received the product and started getting value from it and started and just start praising us. Like they write their review in there. And then I just take that and use it for copy on the rest of the store. It is so powerful.
Nice. This is a great question because I normally ask a few questions, and the most powerful question that I ask is, what almost prevented you from buying? This also it gave me a good idea of what I should split test, because they literally told me I wasn't sure about the sizing. I wasn't sure, so I just changed the sizing chart and stuff like that. So this is what I use. But I love the question that you offered, because one question it's way more powerful than just asking them like 3 or 4 questions, which is what I did, and probably losing conversion rates on the survey. Another topic that I would like to ask you about is exit intent pop-ups. I hope you won't get mad about me in mentioning this topic, but what is your take about exit intent pop-up? Desktop, mobile, don't do them at all?
They're misunderstood and misused. I'm not going to hate them out the gate, but it's like carousels. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do them correctly, not even well, just correctly at all. And you are walking into a hornet's nest, fam. I want you as a store owner to think about exit intent pop-ups like they are an employee in a physical store. Okay. And that employee is holding a clipboard where they can take your email address. When would it be most appropriate for that employee to walk up to a customer as they walk into a store and produce the clipboard and gently ask for their email address. And what would they say?
Yeah.
Think about it like that, and you will probably rip the exit intent pop-up out of your store. Because if it's an exit intent, then they're about to exit. Do you want someone chasing after them as they're running out of the store? No. It's the least interested customers. You're just going to piss them off. Fam. Do you want it right as they come in before they do anything? Hi, welcome. Give me your email address, 10% off. I don't even know what you sell. What is going on here? I feel ambushed and weird about this. I also want to encourage you to go through the 5-minute exercise of looking at your mail service provider and seeing what people signed up through an exit intent versus who signed up maybe in the footer of your homepage or something like that. If you have an email sign up footer on your store versus people who got their email address in because they placed an order with you. Take a look at those 3 cohorts for a little bit and tell me what the corresponding conversion rates and customer lifetime values are.
Yeah.
Is it worth having this? Is it worth a reduction in customer goodwill? Is it worth the frustration that people experience? Do you fire it every time someone comes in? Repeat customers, someone who's already bought from you, gets the exit intent. They already have your email address.
Yeah, makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And so if you think about it, literally, it's an employee holding a clipboard yelling at you. Now, sometimes it might be appropriate for an employee holding a clipboard to be yelling at you, but it's not very often. Definitely not as often as you're doing it.
For sure.
That's my take on it. So
interesting. For me, I totally agree that you shouldn't put it too early. And also when they are exiting, but there is one mechanism which I tested and I liked on desktop. I look at the average time spent on a page. There is a practice that you pop the exit intent pop-up after like 80% of the average time spent on the page of non-buyers. This kind of made sense, some sort of a mechanism.
Don't hate it.
Exactly.
Right.
But the thing that confuses me the most is when you go to all the top performing offers in ClickBank, even though they are spammy and we are not competing with them, they all throw exit intent pop-ups. And you would imagine that since they are driving so much traffic, you disagree?
I don't disagree. I think it's a less bad way of doing it. Like, we're not in good territory yet. I don't know. I feel like everybody's like, but what if I put it here? What if I do the carousel in this way? What if I try and do the bad thing in a way that's palatable to you? And then I keep saying, stop doing it. And I don't understand why in e-commerce we feel a need to do the bad thing at all when there's an easier answer, which usually involves less code and more simplicity and more trust. It just boggles my mind. And this is as somebody who literally rips out code for a living and makes the conversion rate go up 40% year over year for people.
Interesting. And I already mentioned ClickBank and their practices, and I was wondering what websites do you look for, like, to get inspiration and try to steal ideas and best practices? Because a lot of people are talking about the VSLs that are used in ClickBank, and I assume that you don't like them.
I don't look to them for inspiration. I outright dislike them, but the first half of the question was, where do you go for inspiration?
Okay, so let's
answer is
let's stick to that one.
I'll say some nice things because I don't want to come off like too much of a curmudgeon about all of this. I think Baymard Institute do an amazing job of providing research-driven, usability, test-driven information around e-commerce. And I'm saying a lot of the things that they're saying. So I don't even think I'm being that contrarian. They're baymard.com. I think they're Danish, and they do tons and tons of e-commerce usability tests, usually on enterprise level stuff. Brilliant work. I like Conversion XL's blog a lot.
Mm.
I spend a lot of time paying attention to UX Collective and just understanding what the discourse is in design writ large. The Wider Funnel, they have a lot of really good insights. The Good, they're another UX agency in Portland, and usertesting.com is really good. Not user testing is a tool. Useronboard.com is one for like software as a service onboarding, which I take a lot of inspiration from around overall customer onboarding, that sort of thing. I like Val Geisler's work around email. Full disclosure, we were on a podcast together. I like Kurt Elster's information. Full disclosure, we were on our Slack team together. Just like there's a lot of good information out there, but there's just so much weirdo snake oil around conversion, and it's hard to find the difference sometimes. So yeah.
I agree. Totally agree. And what about any good books that you suggest for like people just starting out or would like to read about conversion rate optimizations, like the holy grail of books? Any books you?
Yeah. Well, there's mine. There's value-based design, but beyond that, for CRO type stuff, I like Web Form Design by Luke Wroblewski. I like Design for the Digital Age by Kim Goodwin is brilliant. If you want to understand good copy and which is part of the challenge, I really like Joanna Weeb's books for copy hackers, and I love Content Design by Sarah Richards. Those are absolutely brilliant texts. On the consulting side of things, I really like Blair Enz's work and Alan Weiss's work in consulting and Mike Montero's work in client negotiations. So
that's a lot of name dropping, a lot of notes that we will add at the end of the podcast. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these. And let's go back for a second regarding the softwares that you're using. Can you share the full stack of softwares that you're using, like Google Optimize, Hotjar, usability test? What's the name of the software for usability test?
So usertesting.com is like the big one for enterprise clients. I personally use one called Conversion Crimes, which is much smaller, kind of turnkey for small, medium-sized businesses. They're great. I get roughly similar results from them. Other tools. I'm just looking in my doc right now. I spend a lot of time in Audio Hijack and Temi to record transcriptions of customer interviews, that sort of thing. I use Calendly to schedule stuff. I use SurveyMonkey for making screeners for people. I use Hotjar for post-purchase surveys. I spend a lot of time in spreadsheets. It's real boring. Google Analytics for analytics.
For sure.
Yeah.
By the way, I've moved away from Temi a few months ago to Otter AI.
That one is good too. Yeah.
It's so much more precise for me. I mean, it actually understands my accent. So it's amazing. Temi is not accurate in my opinion in opposing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So if you want, I suggest you check it out. And talking about conversion crimes, I think we can't go and finalize the podcast if we don't talk about subscription and subscription offers and post-purchase funnels and elements. So do you mind sharing a bit about your perspective? Because you obviously have so many clients and you see you have a cross view of what's going on and what is trending. So you mind sharing a bit of your thoughts regarding subscription boxes and subscription in general and post-purchase?
Yeah, so I'll talk about subscriptions first. Everybody wants subscriptions, right? I want subscriptions. I run a paid mailing list, and I want people, please subscribe to my paid mailing list. Like, I'm really good at giving you enough value for your buck, and but at the same time, I recognize that as a big ask for customers, and I think people underestimate broadly how resistant consumers are to yet another dang subscription, and they're not reading the room. So there are a few challenges around this that you should probably be focusing on. First is get them to make a purchase at all, right? If you are giving people only a subscription or nothing, you are probably losing the plot in DTC right now. You need to give somebody the ability to start getting value from your product before you then do the ask for subscriptions. You should then create a comprehensive subscription upsell flow, or downsell them to just another one of the thing that they just bought. So it doesn't feel like you're locking them into something because they might want that freedom still. And it might just take a while to nurture that relationship.
I'm not sure I understood this. Can you repeat? You downsell? What do you downsell?
So if, let's say I buy a thing, right? Can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to give me that thing every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
In 3 months, you send me an email. Subscribe to this thing, or if you're not ready to take the plunge on a subscription, buy another one of the thing.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people forget that second half of that clause there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do with that. They don't view it as a win, but you still made money and made a shipment. So get over yourself. Like, and I think just so much of this is focused on what makes sense for the business and not what makes sense for customers. It's one of the biggest problems in DTC right now. It's why you have all of the store links buried under a store link, and all you do is talk about yourself in the primary nav. And it's too ego driven and not customer focused enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying don't do subscriptions. Please, if you work in a consumable business, do subscriptions. CBD, food, booze. But if you're trying to shoehorn a subscription model into like an everyday carry thing, or like a durable goods, like a housewares brand or something, like you're insane. It's not going to work. Like even something like makeup or skincare and your variety about it, like if that's not the focus of your business and it's not like a gift thing, it's probably not going to land. Not now anymore. And now the second thing with post-purchase. So there's the technical issues around post-purchase, and then there's the kind of UX, the overall customer experience angle. What do you think would be, should I talk about both?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Cool. So with post-purchase from a technical standpoint, it used to be a huge bear in Shopify because what you would have to do is effectively rewrite all of Shopify's checkout and then build it yourself, and it looked like Shopify's checkout, and then you would have to be at feature parity with it. And it was a nightmare. And as of like 6 months ago, Shopify locked down their checkout and made everybody actually go through and create their own post-purchase apps that then authorized out on Shopify's checkout. Good for Shopify because they keep integrity on the checkout. Good for apps because they don't have to make a fake checkout and make sure they're at feature parity with it, which sounds like a nightmare to me, just horrible. And so CardHook and post-purchase upsell, which I'm affiliated with both of those apps, so full disclosure, they're both amazing options, and I don't hate them, which segues into what I would take from the UX angle. Test it against having an in-cart upsell or a checkout page upsell. I don't think post-purchase is necessarily the only thing. I also think that the default mode for a lot of post-purchase upsells is too intrusive. And I'm going to go back to the thought of the person holding the clipboard, right? If what you're doing is saying, wait, hold up, and yelling at them to buy a thing and not saying your order has been confirmed, then you've probably lost the plot on post-purchase upsell.
Yeah.
And you need to rethink the communication around it. There are so many gross post-purchase upsells that I've seen. So many, so much snake oil out there. And I'm not here for it. I think that if you manage to be kind about it and not throw a giant countdown timer in or try and like yell at the person with a bunch of urgency, but just kind of nudge them in the right direction, you're probably more likely to close more sales too. Be more gentle about it. That's my take. So
interesting stuff. I understand. I agree regarding the snake oil, and people really try to leverage the power of the post-purchase upsell because it's just a click. So people hide the no button and make the yes, I'd like to purchase button huge, and a lot of shitty stuff going around.
Yeah.
By the way, in Shopify Plus, are you able to do order bumps or not really?
You can. There's actually an app called Order Bump, but I think it only works for Shopify Plus. Check me on that. I'm new here. I don't know.
No, I've moved away from Shopify, so I'm mainly doing on WooCommerce because I have so much more freedom. And since my company is based in Israel, I can't work with Shopify payments and Stripe.
Got it.
So transaction fees are huge when you're using a gateway that is not supported by Shopify. So you pay like 1% of the revenue. So
Oh, that's dumb. Yeah, that's
yeah,
not great.
yeah,
Cool.
it's annoying. So move to WooCommerce.
Fair
Cool.
enough.
Awesome. Let's finish up with a few closing thoughts. So I'm going to ask you a few brief questions. Feel free to answer them briefly or elaborate, whatever. First of all, what new apps or software have you been using lately that really changed the game, in your opinion, or anything that's going to be a game changer?
In-cart upsell for Shopify is really, really huge because it's basically turnkey and doesn't require a whole lot of like code or input from people. Shogun is great for page builder if you can get it to work with your SEO. It can be technically challenging, but it's worth it. I think that we've already talked about transcription services a little bit. Those have always been a huge thing for me. But I use old school tools, man. I'm a classical UX designer, and I just do the things that were established in the early 80s for a modern context. That's pretty much it. Cool. A lot hasn't changed. So
awesome. Assuming we had a huge quote in a Facebook group, a huge billboard in a Facebook group, let's say Ecom Empires, what would be the quotes that you would have placed there for all the e-commerce store owners?
Get out of your head and focus on your customers. That's it.
Awesome.
Listen to your customers. Yeah.
Great. I think it's such an important quote. So maybe we should finish off right here. So before we finish off, can you share where can people read more about your stuff and where they can get hold of you? And
yeah. You can find all of the stuff that I do at draft.nu, and that has my contact info on there. You can sign up for my mailing list on there. There's a free version, and to stay apprised of everything that I got going on.
Awesome. Great. And we'll share the links, obviously, in the show notes. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much. It was very interesting and valuable, and it was a pleasure to hear your experience and knowledge regarding UX and UI, because I think this is kind of a dying art. I'm afraid it seems like a dying art, but you're keeping it alive. So
I'm keeping it alive. It's as old as me, right? Like I think about that all the time, how the PC was invented the year I was born, and how like that, I just look at my own age every time I think about how long UX design has been around for. Hasn't died yet.
For sure. It has a long way to go.
There's a long way to go. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. This was lovely. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right.